In 1992, 8-year-old Clara Morel vanished without a trace during a visit to the Eiffel Tower with her mother. For nearly 3 decades, her disappearance remained an unsolved mystery until a massive flood unearthed a hidden chamber beneath the tower. Inside, authorities found haunting clues that reignited the unfold. One that had been buried for years, Paris in July, was a city alive with promise. The warm breeze carried the scent of blooming jasmine and freshly baked baguettes. Tourists flocked to every corner of the city, their cameras clicking, laughter echoing against ancient stone. But there was no day in July more electric than the 14th, Bastille Day, France's national holiday. The city seemed to hume with an undercurrent of excitement, anticipation shimmering in the summer heat. That morning, Emilia Morel woke with a rare sense of hope. It had been a difficult year, a difficult few years really, raising her daughter alone after a bitter divorce. But today was not about the past. Today was for Clara. "Are you ready, Monsieur?" she called into the tiny bedroom of their second-floor flat in Montparnasse. A muffled giggle answered. Moments later, 9-year-old Clara Morel burst into the kitchen, her sun-kissed curls bouncing, a new blue dress swishing around her knees. "Is the tower really that big, Monsieur's ear? Bigger than you can imagine." It was a promise of adventure, of freedom. The kind of day Emile had always wanted to give her daughter. They left early, weaving through the already bustling streets of Paris. The metro ride to Champ de Mars was packed with tourists, Parisians, and street performers alike. Clara pressed her nose against the window, gasping as the iron lattice of the Eiffel Tower came into view. "We're really going up there?" Emile laughed. "All the way to the second floor, and if you're brave, maybe higher." By 10 a.m., they had joined the snaking line at the tower's base. The atmosphere buzzed with languages from all over the world. Clara clutched her mother's hand tightly, her excitement barely contained. Finally, they boarded the gleaming elevator, its glass sides offering a dizzying view as it climbed higher and higher. When the doors opened at the second level, Clara let out a breathless laugh. The city stretched beneath them, a living map of rooftops, winding streets, and the glittering scene. "Look, man!" she cried, running to the railing. Emily followed, snapping photos with her small Polaroid camera. The view was breathtaking, the sky a perfect cerulean dome above. Vendors bustled about, selling trinkets and postcards. A violinist played near the entrance, his melody drifting through the air. Tourists gathered in clusters, pointing, posing, laughing. Clara twirled near the railing, her dress flaring. Emilia raised her camera. "Hold still, my cherry." Clara beamed, striking a pose. Emily pressed the shutter, capturing the moment. But then Clara's voice piped up. Ma'am, and I'm thirsty." Emilia nodded, rummaging in her tote bag for the small bottle of water they had brought. "Just a moment, love." She crouched, fingers fumbling past sunglasses and a folded map. It took no more than 20-30 seconds, but when she looked up, Clara was gone. At first, Emilia thought she had simply wandered a few steps away. "Clara," she called, rising quickly. No answer. The crowd pressed and shifted around her. "Clara," her voice rose, urgency lacing every syllable. Panic bloomed. Emilia darted between groups of tourists, scanning every face, every corner. Her heart pounded. She ran to the railing where Clara had stood. No sign. Her mind raced. Had Clara gone to fare the elevator? The restroom? But the minutes ticked by, and the crowd remained indifferent, unaware that a small girl had seemingly vanished into thin air. A security guard finally approached, drawn by her frantic cries. "Madam, calm down. What is wrong?" Breathless, Emily gripped his arm. "My daughter, Clara, she was just here, a moment ago. She is 9. She is gone." The guard's expression darkened. He spoke rapidly into his radio. Within minutes, a small team of staff and police arrived. They began a methodical search of the second floor, securing the staircases, checking elevators. Emily could barely breathe. Every passing second felt like a lifetime. Word spread quickly, and soon the entire level was under quiet lockdown. But the first checks yielded nothing. Clara had vanished without a trace. Down in the tower's security room, a technician reviewed the surveillance feeds. Row after row of black and white monitors displayed the tower's every angle, but when they queued up the critical window of time, between 10:47 and 10:51 AUM, a grim discovery emerged. 4 full minutes of footage were missing from the second-floor cameras. The technician's voice was tight. It was a scheduled maintenance cycle this morning, temporary power down. It should not have affected these cameras, but the words hung in the air. No footage, no witnesses, no answers. By noon, the parish police prefecture had arrived in force. News of the missing child spread swiftly among staff. Though officials ordered discretion, the media must not learn of the surveillance lapse. It would be a scandal, one that could shatter public trust, especially on Bastille Day. Emile refused to leave the tower. For hours she paced, wept, pleaded. By evening, search efforts had extended across every floor, every stairwell, every possible hiding place. Nothing. As darkness fell and the first fireworks bloomed over Paris, Emile stood beneath the iron lattice, tears streaking her face. The night sky exploded with color. But for her, the world had gone dark. The first sleepless night bled into the second. By the third day after Clara's disappearance, Emilie was a shadow of herself, eyes bloodshot, voice hoarse from endless pleas. She remained camped near the tower, refusing to leave even as search teams began to thin. The Parisian police continued combing through the structure, draining nearby fountains, questioning tourists, but the initial frenzy was already cooling. Whispers of procedural failure and administrative missteps rippled beneath the surface. Emilie knew. She could see it in their eyes, sympathy shifting to resignation. But she would not accept resignation. On the morning of the fourth day, as she stood near the perimeter fencing, clutching Clara's photo, a man approached hesitantly. He was middle-aged, dressed in a tourist's faded polo shirt and cargo pants. Each exception betrayed him as Belgian. "Madam," he began in careful French, I think I saw something." Emilia's breath caught. "Tell me," she whispered. The man swallowed. "I was with my family near the east stairwell, below the second floor. Around midday, maybe just after your daughter disappeared, I saw a technician." He paused, searching for words. He wore a maintenance uniform. The blue coveralls. He was holding a little girl's hand. She was crying. "I didn't think it could be your child. I only realized later when I saw the posters." Emilie seized his arm. "Did you see where they went?" The man nodded. "Toward the staff elevators, the restricted ones. I thought maybe it was her father or a lost child being helped." Trembling, Emilie dragged him to the police tent. The officers listened gravely, taking down every detail. The man described the technician. Tall, thin, dark hair, no beard. Blue uniform with a faded patch on the chest. One officer exchanged a glance with another, a glance that did not escape Emilie. An hour later they called her into the operations center beneath the tower. A senior officer, Inspector Arnaud Meunier, greeted her with forced calm. "Madame Morel, we have reviewed the maintenance rosters for that day. No technician matching that description was scheduled. All staff were accounted for. No external contractors authorized access to those elevators." Amy stared at him. "Then who was he?" Meunier's jaw tightened. "We don't know, but we are expanding our investigation. We will find out." The days that followed blurred into one another. Emilie barely ate, barely slept. Every waking moment was spent pushing flyers into strangers' hands, cornering journalists, begging them to keep the story alive. But the media cycle was relentless. The city had moved on to the next scandal, the next sensation. Bastille Day had passed. Clara's face remained only in fading posters and Emilie's desperate heart. On the seventh night, Emily returned home for the first time since the disappearance, dragged there by a friend who feared for her health. The apartment was oppressively silent. Clara's drawing still littered the refrigerator. Her small shoes sat neatly by the door. Emily collapsed onto the couch, grief crashing over her. Hours passed. At some point near dawn, a sound at the door startled her awake, a faint rustle, then a thud. Heart pounding, she crept to the threshold. No one was there, but an envelope lay on the doormat. No address. No postage, just her name scrawled in trembling ink. With shaking fingers, Emily opened it. Inside was a single sheet of cheap paper. The message was short, blanky, deliberate handwriting. "La petite est en vie, mais ne la cherchez pas. Sinon vous la perdrez pour sous." The words swam before Emily's eyes. "Clara is alive, but don't look for her or you will lose her forever." For a moment, hope warred with horror. The message was proof. Proof that Clara had not fallen from the tower, had not been snatched by chance. Someone had taken her. Someone was watching. Emily rushed the letter to the police. They examined it carefully. No fingerprints. No fibers. The ink was standard ballpoint. The envelope, generic. No CCTV footage captured the delivery. Inspector Mounier's expression was grim. It could be a cruel hoax, he warned. We have seen this before. But Emily shook her head. No, it's real. I know it. And in her bones she did. The police promised to escalate their investigation. They broadened the search to include former staff, contractors, even employees dismissed in the months before the incident. But bureaucracy dragged like an anchor. Leads slipped away. The tower's management, desperate to avoid liability, quietly discouraged further inquiry into their staffing records. No trace of the phantom technician emerged. No one saw the letter delivered. Emily's world shrank to a single agonizing truth. Clara was alive, and someone wanted to keep it that way. She stared at the message for hours, committing every curve of ink to memory. Somewhere out there, her daughter was waiting. Somewhere, hidden beneath the iron bones of the city, a secret had been buried, and Emily would not stop until she unearthed it. The letter haunted Emily. Each word pulsed in her mind with venomous clarity. Clara was alive, but someone had the power to keep her hidden, and someone knew Emily was searching. The police continued to move cautiously, constrained by procedural red tape and political pressures from the tower's administration. The investigation officially remained open, but already the rhythm of daily searches had slowed. Public interest waned. Headlines faded, yet Emily refused to surrender to the silence. She turned her focus inward, seeking out forgotten corners of the tower's history. She asked questions the police hadn't thought to ask, or perhaps hadn't dared to. Late one evening, while waiting outside the security office in hopes of confronting Inspector Mounier again, Emilio struck up conversation with Antoine Durand, a middle-aged maintenance supervisor who had worked at the tower for over 25 years. He smoked nervously as he spoke, voice low. "The girl, it's a tragedy," he murmured. "But you must understand, madame, this place has its shadows. Many parts of the tower, they have not been touched in decades." Emily seized the thread. "What do you mean?" Antoine glanced around warily. "Below the ground level there are storage areas, maintenance tunnels. Some were closed off long ago. After new safety codes were introduced in the 80s, certain zones were sealed, too costly to renovate, too dangerous to access." His cigarette trembled between his fingers. "No one goes there anymore. They are locked, abandoned." Emily's breath quickened. "Could someone have used them?" Antoine hesitated. "I suppose, if they had keys, or knew the old routes." Emily pressed further, but Antoine grew nervous, excused himself, and vanished into the night. The next day, driven by desperation, Emily found herself at the Bibliothèque Fournie, a small public archive near the Seine, known for its collection of architectural records. With trembling hands, she requested any available blueprints or structural documents related to the Eiffel Tower. The archivist, a young woman with kind eyes, led her to a dusty file cabinet deep in the stacks. "Most official plans are kept by the city," she explained, "but we have older copies, early maintenance documents. Sometimes engineers donated them for preservation." For hours, Emily combed through brittle pages and faded diagrams. Most were routine: electrical grids, elevator schematics, stairwell reinforcement plans. But then her fingers caught on a heavy, yellowed blueprint dated 1964. Its title block read, "Plan de Revision, Sous-sols de la Tour Eiffel." The familiar foundation footprint dominated the page. Below it, shaded in precise ink, were the labeled service corridors and storage vaults beneath the tower's base. And there, near the northeast quadrant, was something unexpected. Compartment P4, Depot Secondaire, a secondary storage room. The name rang no bells. In every modern schematic Emily had seen, no such space was listed. She photographed the plan with shaking hands and rushed to Inspector Mounier the next morning. He frowned as she laid the images before him. "This is interesting," he admitted, "but old plans often included areas that were later removed or repurposed." "Then why is it not in the current blueprints?" Emily challenged. "And why did your maintenance supervisor tell me parts of the basement are sealed?" Mounier sighed. "Madame Morel, we have already searched the accessible sublevels. They are clear." But his tone lacked conviction. Emily sensed doubt flickering behind his weary eyes. That evening, unable to rest, she plunged deeper into her own investigation. She scoured online forums frequented by former tower employees, hoping to unearth forgotten stories. Among them, one name surfaced repeatedly: Roland Lemoyne. Lemoyne had served as chief maintenance engineer through much of the 1980s. A brilliant but eccentric man, he was said to have known the tower better than anyone, its history, its hidden spaces, its forgotten secrets. Yet Lemoyne's career had ended abruptly. Official records showed that he had resigned in January 1992, citing health reasons. No further details were provided. The timing gnawed at Emily 6 months before Clara vanished. Determined, she tracked down Jean-Luc Martin, a retired electrician who had worked under Lemoyne. Over coffee in a dim corner of a cafe, Jean-Luc spoke with quiet unease. Roland was not well near the end, he confided. He became paranoid, spoke of conspiracies, shadows in the tower, said people were watching him. He sipped his drink. But he loved the tower. After he resigned, I still saw him nearby, lurking at the fences, sometimes inside. He had keys, old ones. I don't know how. Emily leaned forward. Could he have used the old storage areas? Jean-Luc hesitated, then nodded. If anyone could, it was Roland. He knew every bolt, every tunnel. Even the ones the management forgot. The pieces clicked into place. The phantom technician, the missing surveillance footage, the hidden compartment no one wanted to acknowledge, and a man, unstable, obsessed, still haunting the tower's shadowed halls. But where was Roland now? And what did he know about Clara? Emily's pulse pounded as she rose from the table. She would find him. She had to. Time moved in ways Emily could no longer trust. Days became months, then years, each one eroding another layer of hope, yet leaving behind a hardened core of determination. The police inquiry into Clara's disappearance remained technically open, but the flurry of early efforts had faded into cold bureaucracy. Files were archived, leads went stale, the public's attention drifted elsewhere, and the tower's management worked quietly to erase the blemish from its image. But for Emily, the wound had never closed. She kept the worn envelope containing the anonymous letter in a small wooden box beneath her bed, taking it out often, as if by sheer force of will she could extract new meaning from its chilling message. In the years that followed, she immersed herself in any available knowledge about the tower, its history, its architecture, its staff, its secrets. With Clara's photo always in her purse, she haunted the surrounding neighborhoods, questioning anyone who might remember something, anything. Life narrowed to a single, relentless purpose. In 2002, 10 years to the day after Clara vanished, Emily found herself once more beneath the tower's iron lattice, clutching a bouquet of wildflowers. The gesture had become ritual, a private vigil observed each July. That afternoon, sitting at a quiet table in a nearby cafe, she struck up conversation with Julien Gauthier, a freelance journalist with a fondness for unsolved cases. Over coffee, Emile poured out her story. Julien listened intently, taking careful notes. "You know," he said slowly when she finished, "there were other disappearances." Emily's breath caught. "What do you mean?" Julien leaned closer. "What do you mean?" Julien leaned closer. "And officially, not publicly anyway, but I've noticed a pattern. 3 children, all missing within a few blocks of the tower, different years, little press coverage." He consulted his notebook. First was a boy, Matthew DuPont, 6 years old, went missing in 1989. Then a girl, Sophie Marchamp, 7, vanished in 1991. And in 1993, after Clara, another boy, Lucas Pelletier, 8. All cases remain unsolved. Emily's pulse quickened. "Show me." Julien promised to share what he had. The following morning, she met him at his small apartment. There, spread across a battered kitchen table, lay photocopies of old police reports, newspaper clippings, and missing persons posters. The parallels were chilling. Each child had disappeared within a roughly 1-kilometer radius of the Eiffel Tower. All between the ages of 6 and 9, each disappearance occurred during a period of heavy tourist traffic when the area swelled with crowds, easy cover for anyone watching. Each investigation yielded few clues, no credible witnesses. In all cases, surveillance, where available, had provided nothing useful. In one report, Emily noted a chilling echo of her own experience. Her stomach turned. Could this be coincidence? Julian shook his head. I don't think so, and neither did some in the forest. He retrieved another document, yellowed with age, a leaked internal memo from the Brigade Criminelle dated 1994. The subject line read, Pattern of child abductions, possible organized operation. The memo detailed concerns among certain detectives that a coordinated group might be targeting children around prominent public landmarks. The theory suggested the use of high-traffic locations with complex infrastructures, sites like the Eiffel Tower, where attackers could exploit blind spots and escape routes. The memo concluded grimly. Further investigation warranted. But the trail ended there. No subsequent reports, no arrests, Julian explained. The inquiry was shelved in 1995. Official reason? Lack of evidence. Unofficially, too many high-level interests wanted it buried. The tower brings in millions each year. A scandal of organized child abduction linked to it? Emily's hands trembled. The pieces aligned in a terrible, dawning mosaic. Clara's abduction was not an isolated act. It was part of a larger, hidden pattern. And someone, perhaps multiple someones, had the knowledge and access to make these children vanish. Her thoughts spiraled. Who had covered this up? How high did the silent reach? And most of all, was Clara still alive, somewhere within the unseen web of this conspiracy? Julian, seeing her turmoil, offered quiet reassurance. I can help, he said. But it won't be easy. Many of the original investigators are retired. Some won't talk. But there are files, buried deep. I know where to look. Emily met his gaze with fierce resolve. Then we look, she said. Together they would tear away the layers of complacency and secrecy that had allowed this darkness to fester beneath the heart of Paris. The revelation of the prior disappearances had ignited a new fire within Emily. Gone was the quiet, quaking, weary mother clinging to hope in the shadows. In her place stood a determined investigator who would stop at nothing. With Julian Gautier's guidance, she began combing through archives, requesting access to old police files, tracing names from the buried memo, but doors closed quickly. Records were missing, permissions pending, review, bureaucratic walls rising higher with each request. Julian warned her. We're treading into waters some would rather remain still. Still, Emilia pressed on. In the summer of 2003, Julien tipped her off to an upcoming event, a symposium on the architectural history of Paris. Hosted by the École des Ponts et Chaussées, the gathering promised rare access to historical blueprints and engineering documents, including some relating to the Eiffel Tower. The event drew architects, historians, and civil engineers from across France. Emily attended in quiet determination, blending among the crowd. The symposium unfolded in a grand hall, sunlight filtering through tall, arched windows. Tables displayed yellow documents, models, and engineering diagrams. As she wandered, a particular display caught her eye, an original 1964 structural revision of the Eiffel Tower, credited to a now-defunct engineering consortium. Heart racing, she approached an elderly archivist overseeing the exhibit. "May I examine this?" she asked. The archivist, noting her sincerity, nodded. Emily carefully unfolded the massive sheet. Her eyes scanned the familiar outline of the tower's base, the crisscross of support beams and sublevels. And then, there it was, near the lower quadrant of the northeastern sub-basement, clearly labeled in faded ink. Compartment P4, Depot Second Air. A cold shiver ran through her. P4, the mysterious compartment mentioned nowhere in modern schematics. Fighting to steady her breath, she photographed the plan meticulously. After thanking the archivist, she left the hall, adrenaline coursing through her veins. That night, she met Julian at his apartment, laying the images before him. His brow furrowed. "P4?" he whispered. "Rubbed this from the current plans." Deliberately. "It's still there," Amy said with certainty. "It has to be." They pored over the photos late into the night, cross-referencing them with contemporary maintenance blueprints. The omission was undeniable. Someone had buried this room's existence, but why? As Julian delved deeper into structural records, Amy Lee shifted focus back to Roland Lemoyne. His name had haunted her since Jean-Luc's reluctant confession. If anyone had exploited hidden spaces in the tower, it was Lemoyne. She returned to the Bibliothèque Historique de la Ville de Paris, combing through press clippings and professional journals. Publicly, Lemoyne remained a brilliant yet reclusive engineer, his career marred only by his abrupt resignation in 1992, but a whispered conversation with a retired journalist yielded a crucial clue. Were rumors, the man confided over a cup of bitter espresso. The Brigade des Mineurs, the juvenile protection unit, they investigated him, quietly. It never made the papers. Heart-pounding, Amy Lee pressed for details. The man provided a name, Commandant Pierre Langlois, retired but once a respected officer in the Child Protection Division. Through tenuous contacts, Julian arranged a meeting. The former commandant greeted them warily at his country home, eyes sharp despite age. "I remember Lemoyne," he said slowly. "Brilliant mind, but unstable. We received a tip, anonymous, alleging inappropriate behavior toward children. We launched a discreet inquiry." He leaned back, sighing. "We found circumstantial evidence, witnesses unwilling to testify, no smoking gun, the higher-ups pressured us to drop it. Officially, nothing stuck. Unofficially, I believe he was guilty. We lacked proof. And then he resigned, disappeared from public view." The room seemed to contract around Emelina, the pieces locked into place with horrifying clarity. A man obsessed with the tower, a hidden compartment erased from records, a history of alleged child abuse. The pattern could no longer be ignored. Julian sat forward. "Do you know where he is now?" Langlois shook his head. "He vanished after 1992. Some say he still prowled near the tower for a time, but after that, nothing." Silence hung heavy. Emily's voice trembled. "I need to find him." Langlois regarded her with quiet sympathy. "Be careful, Madame Morel. Some shadows are dangerous to chase." But Emily had no choice. In her heart, the truth had crystallized. Langlois held the key to Clara's fate. She would tear through every hidden corner of the tower and of Paris itself to find him. The hunt was no longer about hope. It was about justice. The years continued their merciless march. By 2020, nearly 28 years had passed since Clara had vanished from the second floor of the Eiffel Tower. The world had changed beyond recognition, but for Émile Morel, time had crystallized into a permanent ache. Though her hair had begun to gray and her face bore the marks of long grief, her resolve remained unbroken. Julian had moved abroad for work but kept in touch. Together, they maintained a private archive of everything they had uncovered. The P4 blueprints, the memo about the organized kidnappings, the file on Roland Lemoyne. Yet in recent years, leads had grown cold. Lemoyne had disappeared entirely, and attempts to locate him had failed. The tower's current management disavowed knowledge of any hidden compartments or sealed chambers. Officials who might have remembered were either retired or unwilling to speak. Still, Emilia clung to one certainty. P4 existed, and within it lay the key to her daughter's fate. Then, in the spring of 2020, nature intervened. That March, Paris experienced historic flooding. Weeks of torrential rain had swollen the Seine beyond its banks, saturating the ground beneath the city. Water seeped into ancient tunnels and maintenance shafts long thought impervious. Beneath the Eiffel Tower, unseen stresses built silently until, one night, a portion of an old service tunnel collapsed beneath the tower's hidden engineering marvels. The area where P4 was once marked, the next morning, Loic Bernard, a senior structural engineer contracted by the city, arrived to assess the damage. Loic was a meticulous man, passionate about the tower's hidden engineering marvels. As he and his team navigated the debris, a collapsed wall revealed something unexpected. A rusted iron door, partially dislodged by the floodwaters. Its frame bore no markings, and it did not appear on any of Loic's schematics. Intrigued, he ordered the mud and rubble cleared. Beneath decades of sediment, faded stenciling emerged. But this was no mere storage room. It had been deliberately sealed, hidden from official records. The lock had long since corroded. With effort, the team forced the door open. A blast of stale cold air greeted them. Beyond lay a narrow stairwell descending into darkness. Loic, flashlight in hand, led the cautious descent. The air grew colder, Damper, the stairs ended in a small chamber, roughly 3 by 4 meters. The walls were lined with rusted metal shelving. In the center of the room sat an object that made Loick's breath catch. A battered brown leather suitcase, its surface mottled with mold. Around it, the floor was littered with old paper fragments, cloth scraps, and what appeared to be melted wax. The scene felt untouched by time, as if whoever had last been here had meant for it to remain forgotten. Loick called for the police at once, understanding that he might have stumbled onto evidence of something sinister, but curiosity gnawed at him. While awaiting their arrival, he carefully opened the suitcase. Inside lay a child's powder blue dress, stained and faded with age. Folded beneath it was a small handmade rag doll, its yarn hair matted, its fabric face warm. Across the doll's chest, stitched in trembling thread, was a single name, Clara. Loick's heart pounded. He had followed the Clara Morel case as a young man, the mystery that had haunted Paris for years. Now, it seemed, the tower itself was surrendering its secrets. Now it seemed the doll wrapped in brittle tissue paper was an old Polaroid photograph. Loick held it to the light. The image showed a small room with peeling wallpaper. In its center sat a young girl, perhaps 8 or 9, wearing a tattered version of the same blue dress. Her eyes were hollow with fear. Her wrists bore the faint marks of restraint. In the corner of the photo, part of a man's shadow intruded, tall, angular. Loick swallowed hard and replaced the items carefully. When the police arrived, he led them to the chamber. Forensics teams swarmed the scene, photographing every inch. The suitcase and its contents were sealed as evidence. The room was cordoned off, its disturbing discovery kept from the public pending further investigation. News of the find, however, could not be fully contained. Through back channels, word reached Julien, who immediately contacted Emily. Her heart nearly failed her as he spoke. "They found it," he said breathlessly. "P4 and Clara's belongings." Emilia could scarcely comprehend. Years of pain and dead ends had left her numb to hope. Yet this was undeniable. Her daughter's dress, her doll, the photograph. Proof that Clara had been held alive long after that terrible day in 1992. Proof that the tower's forgotten underworld had concealed a crime. Julien arranged a meeting with the police, invoking old contacts. The lead investigator, a pragmatic woman named Commandant Elise Fabre, agreed to a private viewing of the evidence. In a sterile room at the police forensics lab, Emily's hands trembled as she donned gloves and gently lifted her daughter's doll from its protective casing. Tears blurred her vision. The weight of lost years pressed upon her. The photograph was worse. Seeing Clara's haunted gaze, her fragile form, it ripped open wounds long scabbed over. But beneath the pain, a new resolve stirred. Clara had survived. For how long, Emile did not know. Nor did she know whether her daughter was still alive, but at last she had proof. Proof enough to tear down the remaining walls. Proof enough to force the truth into the light. The Polaroid photograph haunted Emily more than anything she had seen in 28 years. She stared at it for hours in her small apartment, memorizing every grim detail. Claire's thin frame, the faded blue dress, the broken doll clutched to her chest. And most importantly, the background, the room that had held her. The walls were pale and mottled, marked with water stains and patches of peeling floral wallpaper. Along the lower edge ran a distinctive wooden trim, chipped and darkened with age. Emilia knew instinctively that this background was the next thread to pull. She insisted that Commandant Fabre have the image analyzed by specialists. The police agreed, assigning the photo to their forensic imaging team. Days passed in agonizing silence until a call came. Julien's voice crackled with urgency. "They found something," he said. "You need to come." At police headquarters, Amy met with Fabre and the forensic analyst, a young man named Damien Lefevre. With careful precision, Damien explained. "We enhanced the image and conducted a comparative analysis with our database of known interiors, institutions, public buildings, older facilities." He tapped his keyboard, bringing up a split-screen comparison. On one side was the Polaroid, on the other, a faded archival photo of a room from the Maison de l'Épée Saint-Cyr, a long-closed elder care facility in the Bourgogne region. The match was undeniable. The same floral wallpaper, the same wood trim. Emilie's breath caught. "Where is this place now?" she demanded. Fabre answered. Shuttered since 2001, structural concerns forced the closure. It's abandoned, a lead at last. They wasted no time. Within days, Fabra organized a team to inspect the derelict building. Emile and Julien accompanied them to Bourgogne, a region of rolling vineyards and sleepy towns. The Maison de Repos Saint-Cyr stood at the edge of a dense forest, its facade sagging with decay. Ivy choked the stone walls. Broken shutters hung askew. The air smelled of mildew and neglect. The team entered cautiously. Inside, the air was thick with dust. Time had ravaged the interior, collapsed ceilings, scattered debris, scattered brick. Yet beneath the decay, echoes of the past remained. On the lower level, they found the room from the photograph. Though altered by years of deterioration, the wallpaper remnants and trim confirmed it. Clara had been here. The question was, when? And was she still alive? The police widened their inquiry, tracing former staff members of the institution. Many had moved away, others had passed on. But one lead surfaced, Margot Petit, a former cleaning staff member now living in Dijon. Fabra and Julien located her and arranged an interview. In a small cafe, Margot, a thin woman in her 60s with sharp eyes, listened to their questions. When shown the Polaroid, her face paled, her hands trembled as she reached for her glass. "I remember her," she whispered. "Years ago, maybe late 90s. She stayed in the basement. No one knew her name." Emily's heart pounded. "What do you mean? What happened to her?" Margot shook her head. "She appeared one day. I think someone brought her there, but no one admitted it. The building was falling apart. We had few staff, no money. The director didn't want problems. He told us, ignore her. We thought she was a homeless girl, maybe mad." "Did she speak?" Julien asked gently. "Rarely. She stayed in the shadows, ate scraps. Sometimes I left her food." Tears welled in Margot's eyes. I didn't know she was a missing child." "Did you ever see who brought her?" Fabra pressed. Margot hesitated. "Once. I thought I saw an older man. Thin, gray hair. He spoke to her harshly. I avoided them. I was afraid." "Roland Lemoyne," Julien whispered. The description fit. The threads converged. P4, the Polaroid, the abandoned care home, and now a living witness. Clara had survived years beyond her disappearance, hidden in this forgotten place. But where was she now? The building had been closed nearly 2 decades. No trace remained of the girl Margot had seen. Yet the trail, long cold, had begun to warm once more. The lead from Margot had electrified Emily. For days after the interview, she couldn't sleep. Clara had been there, had survived within those decaying walls. But the trail had again gone cold. The Maison de Repos had closed in 2001. The girl Margot had seen, Clara, could be anywhere. Yet Emily refused to leave Bourgogne. Something told her she was close, closer than ever before. Julien shared her conviction and remained by her side. They established a small base in a modest inn in the village of Saint-Sauveur, not far from the abandoned care home. Days turned into a week as they combed records, questioned locals, and scoured every corner of the town and surrounding areas. It was during one of these restless days that Emily, weary from fruitless leads, decided to clear her head with a walk through the weekly open-air market in the village square. The market was bustling, rows of vendors selling cheeses, bread, fresh produce, handmade crafts. The scent of lavender mingled with roasting meats in the crisp morning air. Emilia moved through the crowd mechanically, her eyes drifting from stall to stall. Her mind was a storm of worry. Had Clara been moved again? Was she still safe? Would she ever see her daughter alive? She barely noticed a tall, stooped figure entering the square from the far side, an old man with a narrow frame, his silver hair neatly combed back. Beside him walked a young woman, slender, with long brown hair pulled into a loose braid. They moved quietly, the man speaking softly, the young woman nodding without meeting anyone's gaze. Emile turned absently toward a fruit stand. Then her breath caught. The girl. There was something unmistakable in the set of her jaw, the curve of her cheek, the haunted depth of her eyes. Even after all these years, Emily's mother's heart knew. It was Clara. Older, transformed by years of captivity, but unmistakably Clara. The man at her side, Emily recognized him at once, from the old photographs, from Margot's description, Roland Lemoyne. The blood roared in Emily's ears. Her heart pounded. But instinct stopped her from rushing forward. If Clara was under Lemoyne's control, any rash move could jeopardize her. Fighting to stay composed, Emilia followed at a distance, weaving through the crowd. She watched as they stopped at various stalls. Lemoyne kept a possessive hand on Clara's arm, his grip firm but subtle. Clara's eyes darted nervously, her posture tense. When they paused at a bread vendor, Emily dared to move closer. Her pulse thundered. Then, as Claire turned slightly, their eyes met. For a fraction of a second, time froze. Recognition flared in Claire's gaze, then fear. Then something deeper, a silent plea. She held Emily's gaze for a heartbeat longer than was safe, then looked away quickly. Emily stood frozen, warring within her. She knew she couldn't approach openly, not yet. The danger was too great. But then, as the pair moved to the next stall, Clara lingered a moment behind Lemoyne. With trembling hands, she reached into the folds of her skirt and withdrew a small scrap of folded paper. Moving with agonizing slowness, she approached a nearby display of scarves, where Emilia now stood, feigning interest. In a single fluid motion, Clara brushed past, her fingers deftly slipping the folded paper into Emily's coat pocket. Without a word, without a glance, she moved away, rejoining Lemoyne. Emily's breath caught in her throat. Her fingers closed around the paper as if it were a lifeline. She dared not unfold it immediately. Instead, heart racing, she drifted casually away from the market, her steps unsteady. Once she reached a quiet alley behind the square, she unfolded the note with shaking hands. 3 lines, scrawled in shaky but clear English. Tears sprang to Emily's eyes. It was Clara, her Clara, alive, aware, desperate. The message confirmed everything. Clara was still under Lemoyne's grip, but she was reaching out. She wanted to be found. The realization brought both joy and terror. If Clara's message was discovered, Lemoyne might move her again, or worse. Emily hurried back to the inn, the note clutched in her trembling fingers. Julian was waiting. At the sight of her expression, he rose. "What happened?" She handed him the note. His face darkened as he read. "We need to act fast," he said grimly, "before he disappears again." Emily nodded. But how? They had no legal grounds to confront Lemoyne, no proof beyond the fragile note, and Clara remained in danger every second she remained in his grasp. They had to plan carefully. Every move mattered now. The note burned in Emily's pocket like a live wire. Clara had reached out, shattering the illusion that all was lost. Now every second mattered. She and Julien brought the note to Commandant Fabre, who acted swiftly. Given the history of the case and the fresh evidence, Fabre assembled a dedicated task force. They began discreet surveillance of Bourgogne, tracing Lemoyne's movements from the market. Within 24 hours, they located his residence, a secluded stone cottage nestled deep in the woods outside Sauverne, almost invisible from the road. A narrow dirt path led to the property, surrounded by dense trees that shielded it from casual view. Satellite images showed no neighbors within a kilometer. As Fabre's team prepared for a tactical entry, they gathered intelligence. The cottage had no recent utility records. Lemoyne used a generator and well water. But deliveries of food and supplies had been traced, confirming regular activity. It was enough. On a damp gray morning, the operation commenced. Armed officers moved in silently at dawn. Emily waited with Julien and Fabre in a support vehicle, her heart a drumbeat of terror and hope. Through a hidden earpiece, she heard the terse commands. Team 1, perimeter secure. Team 2, approaching door. Minutes crawled by. Then, breaching. The sound of the door being forced open echoed through the radio. Inside, officers found the main rooms eerily tidy, bookshelves lined with engineering manuals, old photographs of the Eiffel Tower, and mechanical parts meticulously organized, but no sign of Clara. Then an officer called out, "We found a secured room, electronic lock, no windows." Fab's voice cut in. "Overrated." The team worked quickly, using a portable bypass device. The lock disengaged with a sharp click. As the door swung open, the beam of a flashlight revealed a stark, narrow room. The air was stale. Against one wall stood a small bed. Across from it, a city of where they sat. She blinked against the light, her eyes wide with fear and confusion. An officer spoke softly. "Clara Morel? You're safe now, "We're here to help." For a moment, she didn't move. Then recognition flickered. Her voice, hoarse from disuse, trembled. "You came?" The team gently escorted her out. In the daylight, Claire seemed fragile but alert. As they bundled her into a waiting medical van, Emily, her breath caught in her throat, watched from a distance. Fabre advised caution. "She may not be ready for direct contact. We'll assess her first." Meanwhile, Roland Lemoyne was apprehended without resistance. He appeared gaunt, eyes sunken but oddly serene. In the interrogation room, Fab faced him across the table. Julien and Émilie observed from behind one-way glass. Lemoyne spoke calmly, as if recounting a simple truth. "I never harmed her," he began. "She was mine to protect, to raise properly." Fabre pressed Clara Morel. "Why?" Lemoyne's lips curled in a faint smile. "Her mother didn't deserve her. I saw the neglect, the chaos. I could give her order. Perfection." His voice grew colder. "But the mother wouldn't let go. She forced me to take her, and afterward I told Clara the truth." "What truth?" Fabric asked. "Then her mother had sold her," Lemoyne said flatly. "Children are easily shaped when young. She believed me." For years, behind the glass, Emilia gasped. Julien placed a steadying hand on her arm. Fabre leaned forward. "And the room, the isolation?" Lemoyne's gaze sharpened. "The world is dangerous. She was safest with me. Others would corrupt her." He showed no remorse, no flicker of guilt. To him, it had all been rational, a twisted act of protection. Fabre continued the questioning, probing for further details. Where had he kept Clara before Sancerre? How had he evaded capture? Piece by piece, Lemoyne recounted his grim narrative. For Émilie, the words were knives, but within the horror, one truth shone through, and at last, the chance to bring her home was within reach. But the years of manipulation would not be easily undone. Clara would need time and her mother's unwavering love to reclaim her life. When the time finally came for Émilie to see Clara, her heart nearly failed her. 3 decades of longing, fear, and grief had led to this moment. Clara had been transported to a secure hospital in Dijon for immediate care. Fab advised Émilie to proceed cautiously. "She's fragile, Madame Morel. The years of isolation, the lies, she won't remember things the way you do." Émilie nodded, though her emotions churned uncontrollably. Julien accompanied her to the hospital, offering quiet strength. In the sterile hallway outside Claire's room, Émilie paused, gathering herself. Through the small window, she saw her daughter, frail, seated on a bed, her arms wrapped protectively around her knees. A nurse spoke gently nearby, but Clara's eyes remained vacant, haunted. At Fabre's signal, Émilie entered slowly. "Clara," she whispered, voice trembling. Clara looked up sharply, fear flashing in her eyes. "No," she gasped. "You? No, you're not real." Her body tensed, retreating against the wall. "He said you were dead. You're dead." The words shattered Émilie's heart. She stepped back instinctively, her hands raised. "I'm here, my love. I never stopped looking for you." But Clara shook her head violently. "Showed me proof. He said you sold me. You wanted me gone." Tears streamed down her face. The nurse intervened gently, guiding Émilie back. "She needs time," the nurse said softly. Outside, Émilie collapsed into Julien's arms, sobbing. The reunion she had dreamed of was a waking nightmare, but Fab remained hopeful. "The truth will take root," she assured Émilie. "We'll give her time, and the best care." Over the following weeks, Clara remained under psychiatric observation. Expert therapists began the slow, delicate process of helping her untangle the web of lies Lemoyne had spun. Emilia visited as often as permitted, sometimes allowed only to observe through glass. Clara's responses fluctuated: terror, confusion, fleeting moments of recognition. Progress was painfully slow. Lemoyne, meanwhile, was charged with multiple counts of kidnapping and unlawful confinement. The investigation widened. Fabrier's team uncovered a hidden journal in Lemoyne's cottage, a disturbing record of his twisted ideology, and obsessive notes about Clara's education. Yet one passage stood out, chillingly uttered: "A subject's P4 process incomplete, removed." The implication was horrifying. Had there been other children? Where were they now? With this new lead, family reclassified the case as a potential organized crime investigation, reopening cold files linked to the tower disappearances. Media coverage exploded. Public outcry surged as details emerged of a wider network. Amy Lee, though wary of the attention, cooperated fully. Her sole focus remained Clara. Over time, the therapy began to yield fragile breakthroughs. In private sessions, Clara gradually confronted the lies she had believed for so long. The moment finally came when, trembling, she asked the therapists to allow her mother in again. Emily entered the room cautiously. Clara's eyes met hers, still wary but no longer panicked. A long silence passed. Then Clara whispered, voice ragged, "You didn't leave me?" Emily knelt, tears flowing. "Never. I never stopped loving you. Never stopped searching." Clara broke down, sobs racking her thin frame. Emily held her. For the first time in 30 years, the healing had begun. Over the next 3 years, Clara underwent intensive therapy, both psychological and physical. She worked to reclaim fragments of her identity, her sense of self. The process was arduous, filled with setbacks and triumphs. But Clara's resilience shone through. By 2023, she had regained enough strength to begin speaking publicly, helping investigators understand the full scope of Lemoyne's actions. In one pivotal interview with Fabre and Julian present, Shah's revolution scoured archival records, cross-referencing dates. Not many, but I heard them. For a time, her voice trembled. Then, they stopped coming. He told me they were failures. Tears welled again. I don't know where they went. This revelation galvanized the investigation. Fabre's team scoured archival records, cross-referencing dates, locations, and known disappearances. A pattern emerged, confirming Lemoyne and at least 3 other missing children from the original list. Interpol joined the probe, expanding its scope to search for possible accomplices and connections to broader trafficking networks. The case of Clara Morel became a national reckoning, forcing renewed scrutiny of old failures and cover-ups. For Emily and Clara, the journey continued. Their relationship, though scarred by decades of separation and trauma, grew stronger with each passing day. Clara moved gradually toward independence, supported by her mother's unwavering love and Julian's steadfast friendship. The road ahead remained uncertain. Questions lingered about the fate of the other children, about the full extent of the network. But for the first time in decades, hope outweighed despair. And beneath the iron shadow of the tower, where it all began, a mother and daughter walked together once more. If you found this story as haunting as we did, don't forget to subscribe for more real-life mysteries and forgotten truths. We'd love to know which moment in Clara's story struck you the most, and where in the world are you watching from? Leave us a comment below, and let's keep this conversation going. More stories are coming soon. Stay curious.